Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, and it's David Birchall again. Welcome to the show. My guest expert today is Rebecca Hanson of Authentic Maths. Rebecca has been involved in the teaching of mathematics in schools and as a university lecturer. She has developed a process which helps teachers achieve better results with primary school children, which is quite exciting. And we'll hear about that from Rebecca shortly. She has become a recognized global expert in her subject, and I, for one, cannot wait to hear more about how Rebecca has brought about some fantastic results for the early years students, and in particular, their teachers. Rebecca, welcome.
Hello, David.
It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Let's come at this from me asking you a few questions so that we can find out more about what it is you do. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about Rebecca Hanson. Your company, Authentic Maths. That's a cracking name. What sort of customers do you help?
Thank you, David. Well, I'm Rebecca Hanson, and I'm a lady who is completely passionate about maths education. It's in everything I do. I love the experience you get when children and adults become really fluent and confident at their maths, and you get classrooms where everybody is motoring and understanding their maths and having a fantastic time with it. So that's the heart of me. I've done all sorts of really interesting jobs in maths education over the years. I've had some amazing opportunities to do wonderful things. But my company, Authentic Maths, what that does now, I have written training for primary school teachers. We have a new primary maths curriculum here in the UK, which is really challenging, and teachers were struggling to cope with it, so I've focused on that in particular. And I've written training that works with all teachers. I've got specific training for teachers of each year 1 to 6, and the early years training is coming in the autumn. And we get into the absolute detail of how to teach every concept on each teacher's maths curriculum to all their children. So we have really visual ways of teaching that help the teachers understand the maths more deeply than they ever did before, and they can see how that's going to work with their children. So my customers are all primary schools. It doesn't matter how they teach maths, what experience their teachers have got, what schemes of work they're working with, what apparatus they've got. We work with everyone, and the training is designed to work with all teachers.
That sounds brilliant. What are the sort of outcomes that you help your teachers achieve in the schools?
Well, the key outcome that I'm really focused on at the minute is that a lot of teachers are very demoralised by the new curriculum. The maths they've got to teach has got harder, and they are being required to teach it effectively to all their children, and they simply don't know how, and they don't know how they can move towards achieving that. And they're very scared because we have a really tough inspection system here in the UK. So the main outcome I focus on is that teachers go through this complete shift when they go through training with Authentic Maths, and they come to understand that every single concept on the curriculum, the maths curriculum, can be taught in ways that will make sense to all their children, including those who are struggling with their maths.
Well, that's superb. I can remember my maths lessons, and I'm long in the tooth now, so I can remember some real difficult times with mathematics, and it sounds like you've broken that barrier.
So what did you struggle with, David?
Oh, you name it. I was a late developer. I was okay until we got onto algorithms and all sorts of other things with technical drawing and stuff like that. And I've had spells where I've been good at maths and not. So I can add up and I can subtract, and I'm good at playing darts and subtracting. So everything that I need, I can do, and I'm not going to start building rockets to go to Mars. So,
well, if you ever do feel that you want to build rockets to go to Mars and you need to sort out your maths, you can come and talk to me. But what you say about being a late developer, lots of people are, but there's no scope for that now because the curriculum pushes so much so young. So we have to find ways that engage all the children, including those who would not necessarily naturally engage with higher level maths at a young age. So, for example, in year 3, when our children are 7, they have to do short multiplication, written multiplication methods, and bus stop short division, which is really quite a challenge for a lot of 7-year-old children, and the teachers are scared of how to teach it. So we get them doing it with blocks, with simple base 10 Dean's blocks. And once the teachers see how that works, they realize that that will truly work for their children. They will understand those methods. And when they get stuck or make mistakes, they'll be able to go back to the blocks and make sense of it all again for themselves. Do you think you would have enjoyed that, David?
I think I would, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds really good. And I can see how you're building this love of mathematics through the things that you're doing. What was it that actually led you into this field? How did you get started, and how did you become this global expert that you now are?
Well, I guess I was really lucky. As a child, I experienced Scottish maths, which was really, really visual. So I always had this deep understanding of maths and ability to be inventive with it. And I enjoyed my maths lessons when they were like that. And I did go on to study maths at Cambridge, but I realised that I didn't enjoy maths for maths' sake. I enjoyed it as a human experience. I loved the sense of playing with it and being inventive with it. And I wanted to share that with other people more than I wanted to be able to do maths for... I mean, some people want to be able to do maths to achieve other things and to build things or so on, but I wanted to experience it as a human thing. So being a maths teacher just seemed totally right to me. I was really lucky. I had a great PGCE, and we have an incredible tradition of maths education here in Cumbria. So I was able to be around some amazing people during my teaching career up here. And I got the chance to lecture at Manchester Met University, which was great, and for the OU, which was excellent as well. And I've done some amazing national and international projects. So I've been incredibly lucky, and I've had constant inspiration from some great people. But I suppose the really magic ingredient for me has been discussion forums, because I'm quite geographically isolated here.
Yes.
And discussion forums became this vehicle through which I could talk to other people who were interested in maths at any time of the day or night. And it allowed me to talk to people in depth and for such a long time about really what people think are really simple ideas in maths, but they're much more complex than that, and the human experience of learning them and how people see them in different ways, and talk about how we can work with that. So I kind of hung out on lots of discussion forums, but my main one was a discussion forum that I've been helping to manage and moderate for quite a lot of years now, called Math Education, Math Culture on LinkedIn, which has got 46,000 people in it, including national experts in math education for all over the globe. And we've been chatting there for years.
That sounds quite fertile.
And the way that I do the training, when I go into schools, it's absolutely a dialogue, and every teacher seems to teach me something new. We set the training up so that they talk and they're thinking on their feet all the time, and they say the most amazing things. So every day when I'm in schools, I'm learning more. I
should imagine they would learn more, and you get that back from them because of your enthusiasm. I mean, your enthusiasm comes out in lumps for this subject. It's fantastic. I love it.
Well,
okay.
I think the experience of working with the teachers, I put the apparatus on the table, and suddenly they can see that things are so simple that they just didn't see before. And they're like, oh, wow, this is going to work with all my kids. And that's where that atmosphere comes from.
Okay, that's great. Let's have a look at the issues that your teacher clients, your school clients have. What are the common obstacles that are preventing them from achieving what it is that you're achieving?
I think the major obstacle is that most primary teachers are very, very isolated. If you're a year 5 teacher in a primary school, it's typically a one-stream primary school. Right. So nobody else teaches what you teach. And you very rarely get the chance to get out of school and talk to anybody else who teaches the maths that you teach.
Yes, I can understand that.
So you've got to try and work it all out for yourself. Teacher training covers very little of it. And teachers now generally train in schools. And they might have done a placement teaching year 3, and then suddenly they've got a year 5 job. And they've got that job because the previous year 5 teacher has gone. So they've got to try and puzzle it all out from scratch. They've got this new curriculum that's come in that they are responsible for untangling. And all the other teachers are stressed about their curriculums, and nobody knows how to help each other within the schools. So it's very, very tough for them, and I really feel for them, and I saw this coming. I mean, with the new curriculum, nobody ever knew how these concepts were to be taught. When people asked, when it was being consulted, they didn't get clear answers. There's no, if you look at the educational research that comes from the top maths teaching countries, you don't get any insight into how to teach this curriculum, because they are teaching concepts to 7-year-olds that we have to teach to 5-year-olds, and it's very, very different. 7-year-olds and 5-year-olds learn in different ways, and you've got to completely rethink it all. But absolutely, there's no research on how it's done, really. There's some little bits of inspiration. Things like Montessori teaching were very powerful in teaching younger children complex stuff, working with Cuisenaire and so on. But they are very specific systems that are expensive, that they're difficult to train teachers to use. It's very expensive to train teachers, and it's difficult to get access to the training. So I had to try and create something much simpler than that works with very simple apparatus that's generic, or you can gather. My teachers who I train often end up going on scavenger hunts around the school to sort of gather up objects for the children to count and look for old wire coat hangers and clothes pegs and things like that.
But it's the recognisable things that actually hit home, isn't it? The clothes pegs and things that the children see all the time. All of a sudden, it brings the mathematics right home to them because they're in the house anyway.
Well, yes, but I mean, what we do with those objects is very specific. So, for example, with the clothes pegs on the coat hanger, I'm getting teachers to teach children the numbers up to 20 and teach them how to see them in groups of 5 and ones left over. So if you look at a coat hanger with 17 pegs of the same colour on, it's really hard for you to tell there are 17 pegs. Yes. But if they are grouped in 5, so it's 5 red, 5 blue, 5 red and 2 blue, you can pretty instantly see that it's 17.
Yes.
So there are very specific things that I'm doing with the apparatus, but I always work from the apparatus teachers already have, or if they haven't got any, we try and find the cheapest and simplest thing that they can grab that will work. I mean, with seeing numbers in 5s, of course, you can use fingers and toes. You can flash 10 into your toes and hold up 7 fingers as 5 on one hand and 2 extra, and you can see that same structure. But it's quite useful to have more than one bit of apparatus so you can shift representations of the same idea.
Sounds fantastic. It really does. Yeah. What are you finding the biggest pitfalls for teachers are at the moment, and are there any misconceptions that they have?
Well, it is a big problem that they don't believe that this is possible.
Right.
And they and there are really good reasons why they don't believe it's possible to teach this curriculum. They probably haven't met anybody who thinks it is possible. They just hear government ministers on telly saying it's possible, but not really explaining how. So we have to overcome that, really. And they're working in an environment where there's so many other changes going on as well. Teachers work long days and they only have a little bit of time available to focus on managing change. That's really, really tough for them.
Yes, I can understand that. And your comments about the way government, no matter what colour that government might be, they always seem to come up with ideas and new processes that people have to put into operation, but don't have any explanations of how that needs to be done. It never ceases to amaze me. But we're stuck with it. So you help these teachers and overcome these obstacles that are misconceptions that they have by taking different types of things that may be lying around in the classroom that they use for all sorts of different things, and then taking them through the process that you've developed. Is that right?
That's right. And sometimes I suggest that they buy some simple apparatus like bead strings or base 10 blocks or place value counters or something like that. I spent a lot of time talking to them when they were first struggling with this curriculum, and they clearly told me that each of them needed somebody to sit down with them and go through the maths that they had to teach and show them how to do it.
Yes.
And the training had to be really cheap, and it had to be non-intrusive in that it didn't have to involve them being out of the classroom for too much time.
Right.
So I developed different cycles of training for teachers in each year, where they do an hour's preparation work, which I send them by email, where they print out their curriculum and highlight it and list what resources they've got and chat to other teachers about what's going on in the school to get them ready to focus on their maths when I come in.
Yeah.
And then I do a 2-hour face-to-face session, either with an individual teacher or with a year group team.
Right.
And we really delve into what they already know and build from that. So I don't go in with a load of stuff to say that I just say regardless. It's very much built around their strengths, and we sort of wriggle around and identify where their conceptual gaps are, and we make sure that we delve right into those and sort of bottom them out and make sure they can clearly see any underlying structures of maths that they previously didn't see. And we do that with the apparatus that they can then use with their students. So it's all very efficient time-wise, and usually schools often don't need any cover. They'll just leave teaching assistants in charge of the class for a couple of hours while the teachers are out with me. Mm-hmm. And then they get some uptake time, usually a month or two, and then they do an hour's follow-up work to consolidate what we've done.
That sounds absolutely superb. And it sounds that what you've got here is something that, by comparison with a lot of things that are out there for maths teachers and for teaching, is relatively inexpensive compared to what I've heard and know about some of the other things, that a couple of which you mentioned here on the conversation.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, teachers did used to have access to quite cheap training from their county advisors, who would put on courses that you would just pay £100 for, and obviously had cover costs and travel costs, but they were reasonably accessible. But most of those courses have gone, as those county advisors and numeracy strategy people and so on have gone. And we now have maths hubs, and they're trying to put on some cheap courses. But the idea is that those courses are run by teachers who are currently teaching. And in practice, they are not having the time. They don't have the time to operate as other advisors did. So that there's a challenge getting those kinds of courses. And then you can buy in training, but some of it is extremely expensive, many thousands of pounds to get a teacher trained.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've found a real niche here, and something that can make a big difference. And that's the thing that excites me as somebody who's been in business and isn't a brilliant mathematician. 2 and 2's always been 5.
It isn't when you can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can count money. So so that I'm quite happy that. Okay, let's move on a little bit. What would be your best piece of advice to those involved in education who may now be considering getting help?
I guess the first thing would be have hope, because people are beginning to work around the challenges of this curriculum, and they're beginning to find ways of making it make sense. And that may take a while to reach teachers. They may not have access to people near them who are feeling that way at the minute, but it is beginning to happen. There are some wonderful resources around, like the National Centre for Excellence in the Teaching of Mathematics, the NCETM, have got some lovely problem-solving resources for it as teachers are shifting towards teaching everyone in the class the same curriculum. They're great resources.
Right.
So people are trying to turn a curriculum that they don't necessarily think is particularly good into something that's a good experience for teachers and for children. So that's coming. Hang on in there. Have hope.
Well, that brings me to my next question. I'm sat here listening to you as if I was a teacher, and I'm wondering, after hearing everything that you've just told me today, how can I get in touch with you to have a chat about the issues that I'm having? So if there's anybody listening to this show that wants to get in touch with you, how can they make contact? How can people get in touch with you to learn a bit more of what it is you do?
So my website is authenticmaths.co.uk or authenticmaths.com. They go to the same place.
Right.
It's spelled as you'd expect, Authentic Maths, all one word. And you can contact me through that, or Authentic Maths is on Facebook, and you can contact at Authentic Maths on Twitter. Or you can find me on my discussion forums on LinkedIn or in math education, math culture.
I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you today with the enthusiasm that you've got for this subject that I found so dry. And if I was at school today, in a primary school, I think I'd be quite enthused about mathematics, whereas before it sort of left me like being hit with a cold fish or something.
Well, one of the reasons for that would have been, David, that you had a really good sense of money. And there was often a contradiction between that and traditional classroom practice, where subtraction was taking away, but you were doing change with money by counting on. And traditionally, primary teachers didn't understand particularly well the challenges that children faced when they were marrying up those ideas. And one thing that has changed in primary education is that most teachers do teach that bridging much better now, and that's with or without my training, using the open number line in ways that support children's understanding of that. So there has been lots of good progress already. But let's hope this new curriculum doesn't undermine that by pushing people too hard, too fast.
So thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you for coming on the show. And we look forward to having you back in the not too distant future to tell us more about what's been going on with you and the classrooms and the teachers and the children. Rebecca Hanson, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.